Hi everyone, Jacob aka Min-Infected Musician here, and in today's video I'm going to show you how I paint faces of a Caucasian skin tone. And I'm also going to go through my process on how I do the weather-bitten cheeks, you know, the reddish cheeks and nose that you've seen on some of my models on Instagram. Please follow me there as well. And I'm also going to do something completely new, at least to me. I'm going to paint frost in this guy's beard. So let's start. Well, as you can see, I've started out with a black primer. And the first step will be to paint on some Bugman's Glow. And I did this in 2 thin layers, just like Duncan Rhodes himself. And what is important here is to make sure that you don't clog up the details around the eyes and, well, other details as well. So that's why I really make sure that the layers are quite thin when I do this step. And there I will say that we are finished with that step. And the next step will be to add some Reichland flesh shade. And I just splash it all over the face. And the only thing that I sort of think about here is to make sure that I don't clog up the details again. It's very important, especially on the face. And when it has dried, I go back with some Bugman's Glow again. But this time I make sure that I leave the Reichland flesh shade in all the deepest recesses. And therefore I will just go over the nose, the ears, the cheeks, the temples, the brow, and basically leaving the Reichland flesh shade in the eye sockets and other places. So, and after that step, and when we have let the Bugman's Glow dry, we will go in with some Caucasian flesh tone. And it's the same here. I will go over all the raised areas. So I'm focusing on the nose, the cheeks, the edge of his ears, his brow, and his temples. And when I did this, I thought that it looked a bit too patchy, especially there on his temples. So I decided to do some glazing with the Caucasian flesh tone. And what I do here is that I water down the Caucasian flesh tone so that the consistency becomes very thin. And then I paint it on by moving the brush towards the place where I want the most color to settle. And this leaves sort of a trail of a more translucent color, which will eventually give a very smooth transition between the 2 colors, in this case Caucasian flesh tone and Bugman's Glow. And as you could see before there, I also dabbed the brush against my moist paper towel so that I'm sure to have the right amount of color in my brush. And there, that step is done. And as you can see, I have chosen not to highlight his lip, since the lips are usually a bit darker than the surrounding skin. And here I go in with some Kislev flesh, which is the lightest of the skin colors I'm using here. And I only do a bit on the tip of his nose, his cheeks, and his ears. And next step is to paint black on his beard and his hair. So I'm just going to go over all of that. The reason that I chose black hair for this guy is I think that it will give a great contrast with the frost that I'm going to attempt to paint in his beard. And there I accidentally painted a unibrow and had to go in with some Bugman's Glow and Caucasian flesh tone again. So the next part is to paint the eyes, and the first thing I do is to paint the eye sockets completely black. And there we go. And after I do this, I go in with some white, and I try to, what I do is I try to leave a black trim around the white. So just having white like in the middle of the eyes here, so that we sort of frame them in black, which gives a nice contrast. And here it is a lot of back and forth, but as my officers in the army used to say, do it again and do it right. Here we can see the end result. It's black around and white in the middle. And the next thing will be to paint the irises. And what I do is I just go in with a dot of black. And it's important to make sure that the iris is not surrounded by white color, because then the model will look totally crazy. What you should try and do is to paint the iris so that it sort of crosses over into the black trim that we have around the eye, because then it will look much more real. Just like this. So the next step that I do here is that I paint his teeth, and just as with the eyes, I go in with some black first to get a good contrast around his teeth. And instead of going in with pure white, I use pallid witch flesh. Because, well, seriously, not that many of us has perfectly white teeth, and those that have has probably done something with them. And I do not believe that Space Marines go for teeth bleaching. And there we go. I think he's starting to look really nice. So I really wanted this guy to look as though he has been out in some really cold weather for a long time. So I wanted his nose and his cheeks and ears to be that sort of red tone that you get when you are have been out in the cold. So I did a glaze here with Wild Rider Red. And I'm making sure that it's really, really thin, because if it's too thick, it's not going to be translucent enough, and it will only look red, since the underlying skin tone won't shine through. And you can see the consistency that I'm trying to work up here. It's very, very thin. It's almost only water. And when I'm satisfied with the consistency, I start to paint it over his cheeks. Well, I also go in like straight after I've painted over it. I go in with a clean, moist brush again, just to soak up the excess of the glaze here. And then I go over it one more time, and I do the same process again until I feel that I'm satisfied with the result. You will have to excuse the bad focus on the camera, but it will get better. And there you can see the result of one cheek at least. And so I just continue on with this process, just glazing over, removing the excess, glazing over and removing the excess until I'm happy with the result. But it's really good to do just as I did here. Just start with one area and see if you get the right tone. So you don't paint all over the face and just afterwards realize that, oh my god, it's way too red. Then you will have to do the entire process again with the Bugman's Glow and the Reichland Flesh Shade and so on and so forth. And now he is starting to look like he has actually been out in the cold for quite some time. And there we go. And then I'm going to go over the beard with some highlights, and I'm a bit unsure to how to highlight black hair, because if you do it with gray colors then it might start look too gray. So what I did here was I went in with some dark Reaper, which sort of has a bluish gray tone, and I thought it worked pretty well. And after the Dark Reaper, I went in with a mixture of Dark Reaper and Dawnstone, just to make some extra highlights there. And there it is. And I must say that I think that it looks really good already in this stage. And the next couple of steps that I did was just to emphasize the entire feel of it. But as you can see, when the head is attached to the model, it looks really nice just in this stage as it is. However, the next thing I did was to paint some stubble on the side of his head. Since if the hair isn't completely newly shaved, there will have become some stubble there. And to get the illusion of a stubble, what I did was that I mixed the lightest of the highlight colors, which are on the side of his head, which in this case was Caucasian flesh tone. And I mixed the Caucasian flesh tone with some gray, in this case Dawnstone. And then I painted this color onto the side of his head, as you can see here, trying to draw out the shape of where his hairline would be. And you can see that it's sort of a grayish flesh tone, which gives a really nice impression of a stubble. I chose to go with quite a light stubble here, but if you mix it with a darker gray, you will also have a darker stubble. So guys, now we come to the really interesting part here. I'm going to do something that I've never tried before. I'm going to try and paint frost in this guy's beard. And the reason for this is that, okay, I've done the red nose and the red cheeks on a couple of models, but I wanted to take it one step further. You know, when it's really cold outside, frost starts to accumulate in your beard if you have a beard, at least when it's like -10 and below, and I really wanted it to look like this guy has been out in the freezing cold for a very long time. Okay, maybe not that long, more like this. So let's see what we can do. I've never seen anyone do this before. Then again, I haven't really researched it, so there might be someone who has done it. Probably there is. But since I haven't seen anyone do it, I just had to figure out how to do this on my own. And I thought that painting small white dots in his beard around his mouth would probably going to do the trick. So I started out with just plain white, and started to do small dots around his mouth. And here you can see the finished result after just adding some dots of white. And I was actually quite pleased with how the model looked at this stage. But after looking at it for a while, I wanted to push it a bit further. So I went in with some liquid frost from Green Stuff World. I have discovered that it's not only usable on like basing, but also, well, clearly for making frost in beards. And I also used it around the collar and in the fur, which hangs on his side here, to get the feeling that his breath has come out and accumulated and frozen over in the fur as well. So, well, here we can see the finished result. And unfortunately, I didn't get this on tape since I thought it up afterwards. But I can describe how I did. And what I did was that I painted on the liquid frost in several thin layers and just built it up as I went along. So I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, please remember to hit that like button, and if you're not already doing it, please subscribe, and you will get more content like this and probably some other bullshit as well. See you next time!